Suboxone come with a large copayment for the insured. According to the GoodRx app, a 30-day supply of 8 mg Suboxone strips costs between $150 and $200. That's what an insurance salesman or a money manager call residual income. So it seems there are many different people and industries that will benefit financially by taking people like you and I and shoving us into a rehab clinic, forcefully tapering us off of opioids, and instead substituting medications like Suboxone. The growing and clearly corrupt substance abuse industry benefits greatly from this new experiment. Drug manufacturers increase residual income from medication-assisted treatment, and pukes like Kolodny and Dr. Teeter, the core group facilitator of the 2016 Guideline, are making money hand over fist from speaking engagements, seminars, and consulting-type activities. I feel that I do have to make something clear. I was catastrophically injured in 1995. The first major breakthrough in my pain management was when I was placed on gabapentin in 1997. Before that, I was completely bedridden and screaming day and night. I don't know how I survived that, but I did. The gabapentin took the constant 10 out of 10 pain levels and knocked them down to around an 8 out of 10, all day and all night. That doesn't seem like that much of a reduction, but when living in 10 out of 10 pain levels 24/7, that was huge. I lived with 8 out of 10 pain levels for a decade. I was told over and over again that I, quote, had to learn to live with the pain, but I wasn't going to. That is when the pain clinic at CU Medical in Denver got their hands on a young, healthy, and completely willing lab rat. After 8 spinal neurostimulator implants, all of which failed, my primary care doctor finally put a stop to the madness. That is when I met Dr. Richard Stieg and was introduced to another drug that would change my life moving forward. Before I could be seen by Dr. Stieg, my primary had to prescribe me oxycodone until I had a certain level in my system. Until that point, I was completely opioid-free for 10 years despite suffering insane pain levels. Dr. Stieg recommended Suboxone, and I was immediately hesitant due to fears of tolerance. I didn't want to take a medication that would only work for a few weeks or a few months before I had to up my dose. Dr. Stieg assured me that I would not build a tolerance to the medication, so I gave it a shot, and it worked. It actually worked. An interesting side note is that I was on oxycodone for over a month before seeing Stieg, and it did nothing for the pain. Suboxone slashed my pain levels drastically. I went from an 8 out of 10 all day, every day, to a 5 or 6 out of 10 daily. Again, it doesn't seem like that much of a reduction, but I learned a long time ago there was a certain level of pain that I had to accept. The reduction at least allowed me to function. Showers were no longer my worst enemy. I could cook for myself. And to my physician's delight, I was finally able to exercise. You just cannot exercise when you're in 8 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 pain levels. I was not prescribed Suboxone for opioid dependency. I was placed on the drug for pain management purposes, and it worked, whereas more traditional opioids did not even touch the chronic phantom nerve pain. I explained this because I do not have a dog in the fight against Suboxone. I have a problem with Kolodny, Dr. Teeter, Prop, and others of their ilk. Okay, so now we know who the paid, outside, and biased consultants responsible for the 2016 Guideline were. We also know why they benefit from further stigmatizing chronic pain. In these 2 sub-episodes, we have covered the fact that the guidelines were not recommendations, they were law for majority of Americans, and asked who was behind the CDC Guideline. Next episode, episode 5.3, we're going to ask the important question. Can the damage from the 2016 CDC Guideline be undone? I'm not sure if listeners will like my answer. I feel the problem started long before the 2016 Guideline. But I have to be honest with listeners. I know in my heart we are fighting a stigma that has been so deeply engraved into our culture that the open discrimination against tens of millions of people is not only accepted by most of the population, it is encouraged and even mandated by the federal government. It's not going to be a fun conversation, but I promise, by the end of episode 5.3, there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a lot of work to do. There is more suffering on the way before it gets better. But it can get better, and we are the ones that can make it happen. Okay, so I'm calling this episode a wrap. That's it for episode 5.2. So as promised in episode 5.1, I'm going to wrap up this production by honoring some of the unfortunate casualties of the CDC, Prop, and people like Kolodny. According to the U.S. Pain Foundation on December 5, 2018, a September 2018 study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine found that more than 10% of suicide cases in the United States involved chronic pain. 10%, folks. Allison Kimberly, age 30 of Colorado, claimed the University of Colorado emergency room in Aurora refused to treat her pain. Allison posted on Instagram describing how she was treated as an addict and sent away without pain medication. Quote, "I was rushed to the ER because my pain was so out of control I couldn't take it anymore. I got zero help. After 7 hours I was discharged. The nurse had the nerve to say that my kind of pain shouldn't be that bad, and basically, I was faking for medication. I am so beside myself. I am shaking as I type this, screaming and begging in pain, needing any kind of help they'd give me, and I was just sent home. As soon as I am able, I'm reporting my whole experience." Allison did not have the time to file a complaint against the hospital, as she violently ended her life while her mother walked her dog, the animal companion that made her anguish less lonely. No doctors appear to have been charged. The Colorado Hospital Association was in the process of piloting a zero opioid policy for the state. She died in June 2017. Mercedes McGuire of Indiana ended her life August 4, 2017, after struggling with agony originally suppressed with opioid pain medication. The severe pain returned after her physician tapered her pain medicine in an effort to comply with the 2016 CDC Guideline and stay off of law enforcement's radar. At one point, she was in such discomfort she went to the ER. She could not stand the intractable pain by quote-unquote learning to live with it, as suggested by her physician and CDC consultants. The ER gave her a small prescription. She went to the pharmacy where they refused to fill it because she had a pain contract. She went home and killed herself. She was a young mother with a 4-year-old son named Bentley. Bob Mason, age 67 of Helena, Montana, was denied pain medication after losing access to his pain control doctor. He could find no other physician willing to take him as a patient, and he took his own life on January 2016. He tried to deal with his pain, as recommended by CDC consultants. He tried for 7 days, and he lost the battle. According to Mason's daughter, during the last couple weeks of his life, there were a lot of tears, daily, on the phone. She said the tears wavered between the impact of the pain and sadness over not being able to walk his dog or do other simple things. Quote, "But I'm sure it was more than just that," she added. "There were tears, and he would joke. Then he'd call back an hour later and he'd be in tears over the pain again. He didn't like the drugs, but there were no other options. Suicide became his only option." Donald Allen Byer from Idaho lived with pain for years. He suffered from a job-related injury and broke his back. After his doctor retired, Byer struggled without pain medicine for months. He tried his best and used several alternatives to opioids, but nothing worked except for the pain medicine he took for years with no signs of abuse. Byer shot himself on his 47th birthday. His son said that before his death, he could not even get out of bed to use the restroom. He was a professional logger, and the painkillers allowed him to function. Physicians refused to treat him. He had a son and 2 small grandsons. Denny Peck of Washington State was 58 when he ended his life. In 1990, he experienced a severe injury to his spine during a boating accident. His mother, Lorraine Peck, said, "He was in severe pain ever since," and his daughter, Amanda Peck, said she couldn't remember a time when her dad wasn't in severe pain. During the last few years of his life, Peck received opioids from a Seattle pain clinic until the clinic closed after a series of DEA raids. The University of Washington pain doctors, the state of Seattle, the federal government, nor the DEA made any provisions for the continuation of care for the estimated 12,000 patients who were abandoned. After suffering severely and unable to find doctors who would treat his pain, Peck called 911 out of desperation. Becoming a pariah, like patients of any DEA-targeted clinic, Peck could find no doctor willing to continue his treatment. His previous pain management was successful, and he showed no signs of addiction, abuse, or diversion. 2 days after pleading for help at the ER, where he was turned away, Peck was found dead in his home from a self-inflicted gunshot. A note found near Peck read, "Can't sleep, can't eat, can't do anything, and the white coats don't care at all." In the final part of Episode 5, Episode 5.3, I asked the important question: can the damage from the 2016 CDC Guideline be undone? The Chronic Pain Survival Guide is a Melanie Martin production and researched, written, sound engineered, and hosted by yours truly, Timothy J. Miller. The music for this episode was provided by the wonderful contributors to YouTube's free music archive. Thank you, and see you next episode.